Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Let's talk about the proposal. You know the assignment proposal on Edmodo? We have the proposal assignment instead of the midterm. You need to write proposal. As PhD students, you need to write 8 pages. And for Master 6, for the diploma, you need to write 5 pages. So I got some question about what should we do? This is our first time, write a proposal. So let's clarify this point. Proposal should contain introduction. Within this introduction, you need to do or conduct literature review. Literature review, you need to go to PubMed or Google Scholar or other search engine and search for at least 10, 20, it depends on your research. Related articles, similar articles. Try to summarize them. I need to remind you, please don't copy and paste. There will be another lecture about plagiarism. It's really serious academic misconduct if you plagiarize. What do you mean by plagiarism? Plagiarism means you copy and paste the material from other articles, which is not allowed. You need to either paraphrase or summarize. Paraphrase means you need to change the structure of the sentence. Use your own words. But you need to change the structure, use synonym for the verbs or other components. Try to give the same meaning, but in your own word. For the summarizing, this is not our topic for today, but just briefly. Summarizing means you need to read the article carefully. You need to read the abstract carefully, okay? Then you summarize each article by 1 or 2 sentences. Like for example, if you read my articles about adverse events in nursing homes, you will say, Al-Jumaili and colleagues conducted research about adverse events in nursing homes, and they found these factors are significantly associated with adverse events. That's it. This is the summarizing of my research or my article. So you can summarize each article by a couple sentences. You need to learn how to summarize. I have one lecture about paraphrasing and summarizing. I will double check with Dr. Muwaffaq if he is going to give this lecture or me. Otherwise, we are going to post it on the Edmodo. So you will read it. You will have some tips about paraphrasing and summarizing. If you need to copy-paste, you cannot copy-paste more than 10% of your work. And if you copy-paste something, you need to put quotation mark. Quotation mark plus the reference. Changing couple words doesn't mean paraphrasing. يعني مو أنت راح تشيل كلمتين فقط تغيرهم تقول أنا هذا paraphrasing. لا, paraphrasing you need to change the sentence structure. So, you need to give the same meaning, but so we'll give you tips about paraphrasing and summarizing. But I started with this because in your proposal you need to write introduction. Introduction plus literature review. Literature review is what other studies found in your research. For example, you say other studies have been conducted related to our research, but they didn't focus on this area. I'm going to focus on this area. So, because always there are some literature online, but those studies, they didn't measure what I'm going to measure. Just say what's your contribution. So you need to say literature review and also focus on the gap in the literature. Say all those literatures didn't measure this point. I'm going to measure it. So it will be clear what's your So as Dr. Muwaffaq introduced last lecture, we had those study designs, but today, as a reminder, there will be assignment. Dr. Muwaffaq, we agreed together about this assignment. You need to write proposal, 8 pages for PhD students, 6 pages for the master students, 5 pages for the diploma students, you need to write the introduction, which is plus the literature review. You need to write the objectives. You need to write the methods. And if you have the idea about even the statistical analysis, you need to write the potential statistical analysis you are going to do. So you can use your special problem, you can use all, or it depends on your step. If you are in advanced step and you already have the proposal in your mind, just write it. But if you don't, you need to talk with your advisor and also talk to us. But we need this assignment due by April 15, the introduction, and the final one will be April 25th. So if you have questions about those details, please feel free to ask me, ask Dr. Muwaffaq about what should we do. I know we have broad spectrum of students here, maybe the chemistry, pharmaceutics, their proposal different than our proposal, but at the end of the day, I need introduction, objectives, and methods. Let's help, we will give you some feedbacks about those, maybe some tips, but you need to check with your advisor what topic you are going to write, okay? This will be required, it will be counts for 40, as Dr. Muwaffaq recommends, it's like 40 points of your total grade, and the final will be 60%. You have questions about this one? More details will be after the lecture. Okay, sounds good? Last lecture, Dr. Muwaffaq already introduced the basics for the research design. Today I'm going to going deeper in 2 or 3 of those studies, which is observational studies and experimental studies. Okay? So today we'll talk about observationals. Observationals mean there is no interventions. We just observe, take notes, record data without intervention. This study may not apply for all your disciplines, but it's common one, observational. And the observational, we can divide this into 2, either descriptive or analytic. We're going to talk about what the difference between those 2. Interventional, which is clinical trials. It's human-related studies. Clinical trials, we have some interventions. We give something, we intervene, okay? And we need to measure pre-intervention and post-intervention, okay? What's the difference between the descriptive and analytics? Usually the descriptive, it's just simple study. There is no, we just collect informations. Like we usually use the data, it's already collected there. يعني تروح أنت هسه على المستشفى, you will find the data on the charts themselves. They already collected these data for you. So there is nothing you collected special. It's already collected. So in this one, we just create hypothesis. Do you know what do we mean by hypothesis? شنو معناه؟ ممكن يعطيني واحد مثال؟ hypothesis. أي hypothesis على الموضوع معنا؟ تفضلي.
Protecting group is specific for a methyl group, amine group.
So you assume something and you need to prove it, okay? You say there is a significant relationship between age and hypertension, okay? I need to measure this. At the end of your study, you need either to prove it or disprove it. So hypothesis is something we assume we need to test it. ماشي? Something we need to test it. At the end of the study, we need to say if this hypothesis approved or disapproved. هاي معنى hypothesis. And I like hypothesis, it's kind of objectives, but in different statement. You can say this factor is significantly associated with liver disease. Okay? This is our hypothesis. At the end of the study, we need either prove it or disprove it. Analytic one, which is the measurement. We need to test the hypothesis. Okay? We need to collect specific data to test it. Let's give the description. So it's mostly descriptive epidemiology. It's especially for a new disease. إذا تذكرون الإيبولا فيروس. إيبولا فيروس ما حد يعرف عنه معلومات أي شيء. تمام؟ What they did, they go and they ask which patients it's already infected by this Ebola virus, what the environment, what the time there. Try to describe, it's descriptive, try to describe the disease. مش شرط Ebola virus. It's any infection, any contaminations, we need to describe something. Okay? Just descriptive. ماكو test. فقط descriptive. صار عندنا فكرة. الMI, any disease. Okay, Amy? So descriptive, it's either populational or individual. It's correlational, ecological, aggregated studies. And for individual, it's case report, which is single case, or case series. شلون ممكن نوصف الهاي؟ ناخذ one case infected by Ebola. Study signs and symptoms, study treatment, study the risk factors. كلها نصير لها case report. ماشي يعني؟ وممكن نسوي case series اللي هي multiple cases مال Ebola virus. مثلا هسه تقول لي البوبوليشن شنو؟ population it's large scale. Large scale. We aggregate all the data in the United States, all the data in Iraq. About, for example, in Iraq we have this depleted uranium contamination. What happened in Tuatha? You remember when the yellow cake, the people just like store these barrels with yellow cakes in the Tuatha, and they got this radiation from depleted uranium, and then they got the cancer from this radiation. We need to study what happened there. So it's kind of correlational or ecological, and here wide range. Okay, it's large scale. It's not single one. It's not multiple, but it's large scale. So analytical one, we need to test the causal hypothesis. What do we mean by causal? إذا تسمع كلمة causal, we need to prove the depleted uranium causes the cancer. How can we prove this? يعني مش بدري أن السرطان إحنا أصلاً يجي من depleted uranium. We need to prove this. We need the radiation before the disease. We need proof. We need to prove this radiation caused the cancer. Okay? So causation is not easy to say. It's very hard to say age causes the hypertension. We need to control, maybe this in the next lecture, I'm not sure when, but you need to know confounding, the term confounding. The term confounding means we may have another factors in influencing our outcome. يعني مثلا انت مثل تقول الage هو causes the disease, the hypertension, because we may have other factors like genetics, environmental, behavioral, food. Those cause confounders. If we don't control those, we may have biased results. So one of the statistical analysis, which I call it the gold standard, which is the regression analysis. Regression, the good things in regression analysis, we usually control those confounders. We put all those confounders in one equation, and when I say the effect of age on the outcome, which is hypertension, I control the other confounders. But in the correlation, the simple one, we usually conduct the simple one, the correlation, the binary correlation. We don't control anything. We just do correlation between the age and hypertension, and we didn't control the other factors. So at the end of the day, you would say there is positive correlation between age and hypertension, but you didn't control the behavioral, the food, the genetics, the environment. So that's why correlation now is less reliable. It's not that valid results, guys. So correlation gives you something, but it's not really controlling other co-founders. If you have so many factors you want to control, just use regression. So analytic epidemiology, we have two major ones, either observationals or interventions. Observationals, I say, we don't do any interventions. يعني احنا ما راح نسوي أي شيء. مجرد we go to the field, we collect data, we do the records without doing anything to intervene in the patients or in the population. While in the interventions, we usually intervene. We give medications, or we did the interventional behavioral. So keep in mind, this one, it needs some intervention. The observational one, it's just observing and record data, okay? We have several design here. Have you heard about cross-sectional? ممكن واحد يعطيني مثال على cross-sectional study؟ cross-sectional study ممكن واحد طبعا هسه بالجديد اكو ترند عليها. cross-sectional شنو معنى cross-sectional؟ سامعين بيها؟
يعني على الفترات الزمنيه هذول يعني
لا هي اسمها cross-sectional. cross-sectional اريد اعطيك مثال عليها. هي مثل سكرين شات. هي بيكتشر يعني تقريبا بيكتشر مال الوضع الحالي فقط. ابد ما تروحين لورا بالعكس. ابد ما تقيسين الريتروسبكتيف ولا تقيسين بروسبكتيف، لا هي من اسمها cross-sectional. Imagine you take the picture for this class now. Take picture now. This is the cross-sectional. At this time you need to report it's March 24th. We conducted this study. Those students they felt this. This is cross-sectional. It's most common one is survey. Survey, you just distribute survey in March and April and you collected data. This is the cross-sectional. We didn't follow them. If you follow them in the future or follow them in the past, this is called cohort. But keep in mind, cross-sectional, we just at one point of time, one point, okay? And survey, we distribute survey once. I'll sort of cross-sectional. The case control, we have control cases. We have شنو قصدنا بالcontrol? They don't have the disease. ماشي بنقول control يعني شنو؟ They don't have the disease. شنو معنى الcase? They have the disease. ماشي يعني؟ بنقول case control. Cohort study mean we follow those patients either in the past or in the future. Cohort. Okay? We have two types. Either we have retrospective. يعني retrospective, you go to the hospital and check the archive, الارشيف. Check the archive of the hospital and you will find the patient charts for the last year, patient with MI. And you dig in those charts. This is retrospective. But if you need to conduct the prospective, you need to specify your patients now or population and follow those in the future. Now,
exposure and outcome.
Exposure, you need to start with them at this point. I will show you in the next couple of slides. So you will ask me, you're presenting so many design. Which one is the most reliable one? Which one is most trusted one? They're always top and always low. Always high quality, always low quality. يعني مثل ما انت بالسوق بتروح تشتري حاجة زينة وحاجة رخيصة. Let's see here. Systematic review. Have you heard about systematic review? شو معنى systematic review? It's literature review, but in systematic way. You use specific meshword or keywords, and you use them. يعني أنت plug مثلا adverse drug events. You plug adverse drug events, adverse drug reactions. كل الترمز اللي استخدمتها لازم تعرضها قليل. من اسمها systematic. I should be able to get the same result if I repeat this review. يعني نفس الوورد أنت تستخدمها، تعطيني إياها. وتقول لي دكتور علي هذول من حتستخدمهم نفسهم راح تلقي نفس العدد اللي انا لقيته. انا هذول نفسهم الكي ووردز اخليهم ببمد اقول له سيرش يطلعون 3000 ارتكلز نفسهم اللي انت قلت لي عليهم. ومن 3000 اسوي اكسكلوجن للانريليتد 1 واند ابوت 50. من اسمها systematics. Could be repeated. ماشي؟ Could be repeated. This is most trusted one. The results. The second one is the randomized control trials. I will go over it shortly. Non-randomized control trials without randomizations, because randomization controls something, I will tell you later. Observational mean cohort and the cross-sectional. Case series and case report, those are descriptive. And finally, expert opinion. يعني دير بالك هسه يمكن انت من تروح تسوي literature review مو طلع لي expert opinion، يعني شنو؟ If you go to literature and find someone writing single author، برا تقريبا single author ما عندهم تدريب ان يسوون research. من تشوف single author اوقف عنده، شوف هذا شنو الارتكل. احتمال هذا مو ريسيرش، اصلا ديتا هذا مو من عنده، هذا يحكي لك يحكي لك رايه، يعني مثلا اني افتهم مثلا بالادفيرس دراج ايفنتس واكتب لك عن الادفيرس دراج ايفنتس، بس ستيل هذا اوبينيون. اتس ليس تراستد وان، احتمال انا اكون بايز، احتمال دا اسوي دعايه لشركه معينه. فخلي ببالك اذا هو اوبينيون او اكسبيرت اوبينيون بدون ديتا هذا مو كلش تراستد يعني من ناحيه البايز، اوكي؟ Let's go to the interventional studies. Interventional studies, the gold standard one is randomized control trial. What do we mean by randomized? أكو واحد فكرة شنو معنى randomized؟ Randomized mean عندي صورة هنا. In the randomization mean we have population here. We need to divide those into two groups. One is treatment group, one is control group. Control treatment groups, we give them, for example, the new medications. The control group, either with conventional medications, it depends. يعني شو معنى كنترول؟ يعني مو شرط على طول بلاسيبو، يعني مو تسمع كنترول على بالك هذا على طول بلاسيبو، لا او ما عنده، لا، كنترول يعني if we have hypertension, ethically we cannot leave this patient without treatment, okay? So control group should take the conventional therapy. يعني مثلا اذا نريد نجرب الفالسارتان هو new medication مثلا. This group with valsartan, this group with captopril, conventional, okay? And we compare, we follow those in the future, يعني ممكن 6 months, 1 year. And then we compare the results. Why do we do randomization? شنو برأيكم؟ شنو فائدة randomization? Bias, which bias? Yeah, it's minimizing bias, exactly. It's one of them. It's one of them is selection bias. يعني أنا ما أقدر أختار أقول هذول المرضى زينين خلي أجيبهم بالنيو تريتمنت جروب، بالانترفنشن أو تريتمنت جروب، وهذول تعبانين خلي أخليهم وين؟ بالكنترول جروب. So we need to minimize the selection bias and other biases. Also, the second reason why we do randomization.
Objective result.
We need to have comparable groups. We need to divide those groups according to their age, gender, and other factors randomly without any bias. ماشي؟ So it's in the top of those studies, which is randomized control trials. We have also, I need to maybe move faster because we have other ones. Have you heard about single blind and double blind? What do you mean by single blind?
The researcher does, the patient doesn't know.
The patient doesn't know if this medication is the control or the intervention. But in double blind, both. The researcher, we need to minimize what? The researcher bias or any manipulation in the data. يعني أنت إذا نفسك, if you know this patient taking the intervention medications, you may take care of this patient more than the control group. See, it will be biased. So if you don't know, the patient doesn't know, end up with fair one. So double blind, both researcher and the patient don't know which one is the intervention group, which one is the control group. You have a question about the randomized control trial? Triple blinds, we usually, even the one responsible for the collecting data, they doesn't know. We usually assign third party. But it's most commonly one now, it's double blind. To be perfect if you can do this. Otherwise, if you can do randomization, just do it. If you can do blindness, just do it. But it depends on resources. Keep in mind, randomized control trials is very expensive. It's a prospective intervention. You need to follow them in the future. So it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's really resources consuming. ماشي? You need to hire someone to collect data. You need to hire all those by statistician for randomization. It's really expensive. That's why the new medications will cost like, you know those numbers about new medication in the US, they cost them like 20 million or something to develop new medications, 20 billion maybe. I'm not sure about the price, but that's why they give them patent in the United States, because they really spend too much money to develop single medications. That's why they give them patent, like nobody can compete in the market with them in the first 20 years or whatever, okay? Because it's very expensive to conduct those research and randomized control trials. Because you know there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and all those expensive. You need volunteer, you need to pay to the volunteer, and you need to, it's very expensive. That's why it's really expensive, and they get patents. What's the difference between observational and experimental? In the experimental, we usually have randomizations, but in the observational, it's not easy to randomize patients. Okay, because usually those in the past, like observational study usually in the past, and it's hard to randomize patients. So this is one of the weakness of the observational. السيد أقول لكم يا الأفضل observational or randomized control trial شو تقولوا لي؟ ليش؟
حسب الريسورس.
لا انت لازم راسا تعرف هي الراندومايز كنترول تراي هي الجولد ستاندرد. ليش فيها راندومايزيشن؟ والراندومايزيشن حد ذاته احنا فد انجاز يعني اذا قدرنا نسوي. Also we need to compare always with control group. So we have defined population, we gather the data about the exposure and disease, we follow those in the time, and we'll see those two groups, exposed have disease, exposed don't have disease, not exposed have disease. What do we mean by those groups? We need to define our patient, okay? We need to know, for example, if we need to compare the radiation and influence cancer. يعني أنا سويت مرة literature review على التويثة وعلى depleted uranium causing cancer. They always say there is direct relationship between the depleted uranium exposure and the cancer. But we need to prove it. How can we prove it? We need to compare with the control group. ماشي يعني we need to compare with the control group. Control group either other city يعني تويثة ممكن نقيسها ويا other city. احتمال اثنيناتهم نفس العدد مال الكانسر. بعدين ما راح نثبت انه uranium causing. We need to compare with control. يعني مو انت you cannot always measure only the test. Okay, we need always control group. So, case control study. We have the exposure, we don't know where the exposure. We have disease, no disease, and we are here. يعني هذا شو اسمه من اسمه هذا retrospective. تشوف ايش بده يصير؟ retrospective. شلون عرفنا retrospective؟ As you go to the chart, patient chart, patient record, and you will find patient with MI, or you find patient with cancer, patient without cancer, okay? And you go, where is this patient in cancer live? Where is this patient without cancer live? يعني احنا راح نروح للتشارت راح نلقي ديزيز ونون ديزيز، اوكي؟ ونتبع الاكسبوجر مالتهم، يا هو اللي عنده اكسبوجر يا هو اللي ما عنده اكسبوجر، اوكي؟ هذه شو يصلحوا له؟ كيس كنترول. It's retro or prospective برايكم؟ اذا احنا هنا هاي طبعا بالماضي.
ريترو.
بعد تايم شلون جاي هيك؟ شنو معناها هاي ريترو؟ شنو معنى ريترو؟ Prospective. We know the exposure. We know the exposure. يعني هسه مثلا صار باليابان ورا راسا ورا ما انفجرت صار عندهم زلزال ب 2013 راسا صار عندهم النيوكلير ليك تذكرون شو اسمه راسا راح يعني احتمال اكيد سووه بروسبكتيف ستدي راسا قالوا احنا هاي الاريا صار بها ليك الراديشن ليك let's study this area against control area ونشوف ونتابعوهم in the future اوكي هذا اسمه البروسبكتيف اول ما صار الاكسبوجر راسا نبدي ندرس البروسبكتيف نتبعهم بالفيوتشر اوكي شنو مساوئ هاي الطريقه شنو الليميتيشنز مالتها time consuming costly resource consuming okay you need to follow those years شو وقت تحسي بالكانسر ما تعرفين كم سنه انت وتتابعيه وفون كول وهاجر وسافر ومعك وين راح ومات وما تعرفين شو سبب الموت مالته هاي كلها بروسبكتيف كلها كوست وانت عندك تايم ريتروسبكتيف احنا هنا وهذا صار عندك اكسبوجر بكل سهوله هسه انت تروح ريتروسبكتيف تروح للاركايف you go to the archive in the hospital and check for those cancer patients and check their records and they have records for 10 years for example since 2003 it's easy because you'll find the control you find the disease and you know the exposure time which is 2003 we can follow them in the past and you may collect those information in single visit شوف شلون retrospective شلون هي شنو الفوائد مالت retrospective
time cost
less time less cost يعني انت قلت لك single visit تروح تجمع لي مال 10 years in the past you're already there بالاركايف with our electronic record system it's already there يعني انت ما تعبان كثيرا ولا تحتاج تنتظر تروح تجمعها وتسوي لها ريكوردز يعني انا بوقت بالادفيرس ريجمنت جمعت مال ديتا مال السنه اللي ورا هي موجوده بالطبع يعني سنجل فيزيت اني مجرد انه الكيس بكره ما تاخذ من عندي 10 دقائق تاخذ من عندي مثلا ساعه كل كيس، بس رجعت 1 year in the past 12 months انا شيكت البلد بريشر مالتهم in the past. شوف ايش قد هذا Prospective. So it could help us in the etiology to diagnosis, prognostic, therapeutics. Those studies help us in all these fields. يعني That's cohort or case control studies. Cohort, it's hypothesis. We have 3 levels. Keep in mind, you need to have the hypothesis before you start. There are 2 types of options. Either you have the hypothesis before you start the object, or after you conduct the data. يعني هنا يا الأفضل رأيك. We start before or after. Which one is better? It's more trusted, higher quality. لازم الفكرة مالتك ما تغيرها، الفكرة مالتك تبقى ثابتة. يعني أنت مو رأسا أنت مثلا أنت كان ببالك شنو؟ ببالك I need to measure the association between age and hypertension. But after you collected the data and you measured the analysis, you didn't find significant, you change their hypothesis, you change their objectives, which is low quality because you change the hypothesis, which is changing the objectives means. Because you were supposed to measure the relationship between, but you change it because you found out after the analysis, this one doesn't have significant relationship. So it's always better to stick with your hypothesis, with your objectives, and at the end, when you go down and change those along the day, you will have kind of manipulation or something, so it's low quality. Keep in mind, you need to stick with your objectives. يعني ما عندك significant relationship قول ما لقيت significant relationship. يمكن قدمت في السيمينار على there was a grant in the US about 5 million. It's randomized controlled trials in the US and 12 of them like 3 years. At the end of the study, they didn't find significant relationship, but they reported. It's cost them 5 million to conduct the study, and there is no relationship between pharmacist interventions and reduced blood pressure. So it's not disappointing. It's results. Negative result, always result. خلي بالك. إحنا مو على طول لازم significant. Nature of prospective cohort study. We need to define the groups, divide them into exposed, and then follow them forward through the time. Okay? Those costly, those time-consuming, but it's better quality than retrospective because we control the environment. We report everything. يعني if you go to the patient chart in the hospital, you need to work what you have. يعني أنت احتمال ماكو blood pressure, ماكو vital signs, احتمال ماكو creatinine. بس you need to work with what you have in the chart. ماشي؟ ما عندك معلومات بس بالchart. You are limited. You are restricted by those data. ما تقدر تاخذ غيرها. بينما أنت إذا تسويها من هسه prospective, you can measure anything you want. Okay? Take blood sample, take blood pressure, whatever. So it's more flexible to measure anything you want. But if you go to the retrospectively, you go to the archive, تلقى الطبلة ايش فيها ما بيها، جزء ما قاعد يصير blood pressure، جزء ما قاعد يصير vital signs. ماشي هذا الليميتيشن، يعني بيها limitations، يعني هاي من اقول لك prospective is costly but it's better quality، خلي ببالك، it's better quality. So we need to eligible subjects, divide them exposed and exposed. Either they have disease, no disease, disease, no disease. I'll give you an example about cohort study. In my master degree, I studied the influence of lead here in Baghdad. Lead on the sex hormones of women working in battery manufacture plant here in Waziri. But I didn't compare those with control. If I need to measure something, I need to have control group. Like, I only measured lead levels in workers. I have to measure the lead levels in the people they work there, but not as worker, like clerk, يعني المحاسب, الإداري, اللي ما يشتغل بإيده. If you need to measure the influence of battery or lead on those people, you need to compare with non-worker, control group, intervention group. عم بدي اقول هذا الصدق هذا المتعرض هو من عنده لو يجوز المنطقه كلها يجوز حتى لما يشتغل يجوز يتعرض يجوز ذول يتعرضون مو من المعمل. They may expose them from the traffic light. Both of them they expose from traffic lights, even the intervention group. So I always have to have control group. Keep in mind, you have to have control group to compare with it. Because every one of us, if you need to measure my lead test now, you will find it maybe 5 or 4. It's higher than normal. Does it mean I work there? No. Maybe I'm a police traffic or whatever. They stay in the traffic light all the day. Or gas station, people working there. So you need always to compare with control to decide. And follow those in the future, see if they have disease or they don't have the disease. عندكم سؤال على الكوهورت كمصطلح كفكرة؟ شنو الفرق بين الكوهورت والكروس سكشنال؟ شنو الفرق بين الكوهورت والكروس سكشنال؟ كوهورت شنو الفرق عن الكروس سكشنال؟ كروس سكشنال هي عبارة تذكر سناب شوت.
الكوهورت يا اما
ريترو. Which one is higher quality, cohort or cross-sectional? Which one is higher quality, randomized control trial or cohort? Why? Randomization. We have randomization by. We have blindness, maybe. Okay, blindness. So we have, this is the prospective, we already mentioned this. We have the nature of prospective. So the design of cohort study, we have non-randomization. هنا أنا فرق آخر. Sometimes in the cohort it's hard to randomize people. يعني شنو؟ يعني if you need to measure the lead toxicity in this manufacturer plants and you only have 30 workers, you cannot randomize those 30 workers. You need all of them. You need census. يعني أنت تحتاجهم كلهم تقيسهم. يعني ما عندك انت شو تساعدك randomization. If you have large group, if you have list of 200 patients and you randomize those to control and control. But you يعني شنو ما نقدر نسوي randomization? You cannot assign Ali to work as in the lead directly. هو already ده يشتغل، العامل ده يشتغل، هذا كليرك وهذا وركر. يعني انت شلون حتسوي الاساينمنت؟ تقول له شغلك وانت تشتغل بهاي الشغله وانت راندوملي ما تقدر. فاوريدي هم اسايند، يعني هذا الكليرك معروف دول مو راندوملي، يعني هم اوريدي هم نون راندومايز، هو اوريدي ذير. مو مثل الراندومايز كنترول ترايل، انت تسوي لهم اسايند. انت كنترول وانت اكسبوجر وانت نون اكسبوجر. هم اوريدي يعني انت تريد تقارن بين البيشنت اللي ياخذون كابتوبريل against the patient in the past, retrospectively, the difference between captopril and valsartan in the past, ماشي? They already took the valsartan. They already took the captopril. You have no control over, you cannot randomize them anymore. ماشي يعني؟ هذا الفرق. فالrandomization بحد ذاته هو minimizing the selection bias. هنا ما موجود بالكوهورت. تشوفه؟ هم already منقسمين إلى exposed و non exposed. يعني احنا ما راح نسوي لهم randomization. خلي بالك هاي less quality than the randomized control trial. وهذا عندنا مثال عليه مثلا. We chose those people, 75,000 people. They are farmers who work with pesticide. Okay? And we chose the other people. They are not farmer. And we control. We compare between those farmer and non-farmer. نشوف البستيسايد toxicity مالته أو البستيسايد induced cancer. We follow those in the future and measure the cancer and non-cancer. So عندكم واضحة شنو الفكرة؟ إنه if you need to measure the relationship between pesticide and cancer, you need to take the farmer and non-farmer. Farmer because they use the pesticide and compare those intervention group or exposed group against control group. ماشي يعني؟ Follow them in the future or in the past. Check your cancer. Their cancer. So in the retrospective, we need, this is the retrospective cohort study, we need to go back. We need to go back, retrospective cohort study, oh, so I think this is the wrong one. No, this is the prospective, sorry for the typo. This is prospective. Prospective, because this is future. Sorry for the typo, this is for you. In the future, so we start here, and we follow, this is the exposure here, and we follow those to find the incidence of the disease in the future, okay? This is the start of study. This is prospective, okay? For the retrospective, it's in the past, okay? Let's take this in the past. So we need to compare the influence of those workers work with the tire makers against clerical, دول اللي يشتغلون على المكتب. ماشي؟ We go and measure من عندك who has the disease, who doesn't have the disease, and we follow those in the past. واضح عندك؟ شنو الفرق عندك؟ واضح الفرق؟ عندكم سؤال عليه؟ What the difference between those? Prospective, we started 2008. After 10 years, in 2018, we measured exposure. After 20 years, we measured the disease. But in retrospective, we usually start here. Look, we start here in prospective. We start here. But in retrospective, we started 2008. And we went back in the past. شوف هنا بالعكس صار. We start here. يعني تروح للطبلة أنت، تروح للطبلة أول شيء تطلع من عنده كانسر من ما عنده كانسر. And you are follow this patient with cancer in the past. شوف شو اشتغل. Okay؟ وهذا من follow them in the past. يعني؟
صار كيس كنترول.
صارت هي نفسها. لازم عندك أنت retrospective ولازم عندك كيس ولازم عندك كنترول. يعني عندك سؤال؟
دكتور الريتروسبكتيف مو المفروض السهم يعني هيك نرجع احنا للباست؟
اي هو المفروض نرجع للباست بس هو يحكي لك اذا مو هو هنا الاكسبوجر the exposure started 1988 مثلا صار عندنا الراديو depleted uranium مثلا exposure 1988 مثلا after 20 years you went back and you measured the chart ماشي يعني because the exposure started here and the cancer developed after 10 years. تشوف؟ مو هو أول شيء صار لك exposure وبعدين disease then you measure it. تفهمني شنو؟ يعني هو الاكسبوجر ماشي بالفيوتشر بس أنت نظرتك راح تكون راح توقف أنت هنا وتقول لا أخلي أبحث هسه عن جماعة الدبليت يورانيوم 2003. شوف هاي ريتروسبكتيف. بينما تريد تبحثهم من هسه لازم تبحثهم لازم هسه احنا 18 لازم تبحث في 28.
دكتور بدي اوضح
نعم.
دكتور اذا احنا بدينا 98
نعم
وصلنا ل 2008 اللي احنا مثلا بيها
نعم.
ونقول بعد ال10 سنين الجايه هم ندرسها
نعم.
هاي هم تعتبر ريتروسبكتيف؟
العفو احنا شو وقت بلشنا؟
بلشنا احنا 2008
نعم
اوكي رجعنا 10 سنين لورا وخلينا خطه لقدام انه ندرسهم 2000
هاي حتصير خوش سؤال بس كلش خوش سؤال هذا سؤال ممتاز زميلتي قالت اذا احنا هنا شو راح تصير؟
احنا 2008 رجعنا
اي مو
98
يعني نفس الفكره اذا احنا 98 نريد نرجع 10 سنين ونقدم 10 سنين هاي شو صعوبه؟ هاي صعوبه ريترو برو ليش ما اسميها برو؟ لانه اذا برو لازم اني ويا بدايه الاكسبوجر اول ما صار الليك مال احنا ما طول مو بدايته اوريدي هو ستارتد فهذا ريترو بس من اريد اقيس هذا خوش سؤال من اريد اقيس فهذه صار كومبينيشن ريترو وبروسبكتيف ماشي يعني؟ We already mentioned this case control هسه بعد هالسؤال تسالني which one are we going to use? They usually use the retrospective one because it's less expensive, less resources. So we either we use case control or we use retrospective. Okay? In case control, we know the disease and we are looking for the exposure. For retrospective, we know the exposure but we don't know the disease. ماشي يعني؟ يعني من تريد تبحث عن patient with radiation، انت تعرف دول تعرضوا الى radiation بس ما تعرف كم واحد من اللي تعرضوا بالتوالي صار به كانسر. ما تعرف. هذا ريتروسبكتيف. بس انت اذا لقيت ابو الكانسر اول شيء راح تصير كيس كنترول، يعني حتبحث عن الاكسبوجر مالته، واثنينهم ريتروسبكتيف بالدور نفسه. يعني اصلا احنا بدينا ما نقارن البروسبكتيف against retrospective because it's expensive, it's time consuming. We usually measure case control against retrospective. You need to know this term, it's relative risk. It's incidence of the exposure group against incidence of control group. If we have more than one, what does this mean? If we have a relative risk more than one, means the people in the exposure groups they have more disease than the patient in the control group. خليها ببالك. سامعين بالاودز ريشيو نفس الفكره مالتها. احنا عندنا لوجيستيك ريجريشن اللي هو نستخدم به اودز ريشيو، يمكن شوي ادفانس هذا. بس نفس الفكره انه انت more than one means that people with exposure group okay they have more disease. يعني مثل السموكر. اوكي؟ فخلي ببالك relative risk تنقاس واحد اكثر من واحد اقل من واحد. اذا اقل من واحد شنو معناه؟ People on the exposure group they have less disease. Protected مثل ما قال زميلكم. مجرد relative شلون نحسب relative risk؟ مجرد انه نخلي 20 over the total number of exposed people 20 over 100 ممكن تشوفوا هذا هنا. كل سمبل انا بس بدك فكره يعني شلون نحسبها سمبل مات يعني 25 over the total patient of non-exposed. راح نقارن exposed against non-exposed ماشي يعني؟ Relative risk we have couple of exercise about those terms. Like in study which cases of the disease that developed were ascertained if relative risk for the association between a factor and the disease is equal or less than 1. ايش راح تختارون؟ هاي كلها الاكزامبل موجوده عندكم ما راح تفوت تفاصيلها بس اذا عندكم عليها سؤال كلش هي ان شاء الله تكون. Cohort study we have relative risk we have attributable risk. الفرق هنا this is for personal one this is for society or group of population for public health. ماشي؟ This is for public health. Source of data, I think, okay, if you need to conduct a study in charts, in patient charts, you need to collect all these information. Physician records, pharmacist records, nurse notes, lab data, vital signs, if these related to clinical groups. We always need to choose control group. راح تقول لي الكنترول جروب من راح نجيبه؟ Control group either we have internal control group. You remember the lead battery manufacturer plants? We have internal control group. We have the clerk. Okay? يعني the same plant نفس المعمل but we have the clerk. Those are not working directly with the lead. Okay? This is called internal group. What do you mean by external group? External group, any groups, I could be external group. Anyone similar in age could be external group. ماشي? This is the, so be careful, either you need internal or external or both. You always need control group. But do you need internal group or you need external or you need both? عرفت الفرق بين internal و external control group؟ شنو الفرق بيناتهم؟ الانترنال same institution same area ماشي الاكسترنال اوكي
دكتور اذا سيم اريا مثلا من البيوت المجاوره للمعمل
البيوت المجاوره
اكسترنال وانترنال
هذا اكسترنال
اكسترنال نفس المعنى
اي يعني اذا اريد اقول التويثه مثلا الاكزامبل عليها مو اكو ناس جابت البراميل وفرغتها
واستعملوها
اقارن بين هذول وبين الناس بنفس المنطقه اللي ما استعملوا البراميل هذا انترنال بس بنفس المنطقه ذول انترنال بس اذا اريد اقارنهم بالسيديه لا السيديه اكسترنال بس هم نفس العمر ونفس ماشي هذا الاكسترنال يعني انت تختار جروب توتالي بعيد عليهم
بس مثلا المعمل اللي بالوزيريه
نعم.
او
نعم
البيوت اللي بالوزيريه تعتبر اكسترنال ما يجي اكسبوز
اي
سو اكسترنال ولا انترنال
والله انا اقول عليهم اكسترنال بس هي قابله للارجمنتس فالفكره انه على طول تريد كنترول خلي بالك So, limitation of cohort studies. For the prospective limitations, we have time consuming, resource consuming, and we usually don't have randomizations. Okay? I think I'm done with today. If you have any question, I'm ready, and Dr. Mofo already there, and you can ask a question. You can talk.